Alright, so day 2 of the 5-5 notes. What we're doing today is the 5-5b notes, and it wants us to solve these using square roots. And I'm here to tell you you can actually do it one of two ways. Okay, the first way is literally to use square roots, and you should have a multiplication table that you can use to say, well, if x squared equals 225, what is the opposite of x squared? To solve these problems, the opposite of x squared is to square root. And when I square root both sides, so maybe we should write that up top here. If x squared equals a, then the square root of x squared equals the square root of a. And what happens here is the x's, the square root and the square cancel each other out, and I get x equals, and here's the kicker, plus or minus the square root of a. So again, the opposite of squaring, in other words, the opposite of x squared, okay, is square root. So the square root of x squared is plus or minus x. And that's kind of the gist of this whole section. So again, I square root both sides here. The square and square root cancel. I get x equals, well, the square root of 225. Again, if you look at your multiplication chart, you can see it's 15. But let me show you something. If I plug 15 in here, 15 squared is 225. However, negative 15 squared, remember that means negative 15 times negative 15, and a negative times a negative is a positive, also works to give me 225. And that's why it's plus or minus. Now the other part of this is, if we solve it similar to what we did yesterday, and we minus the 225 to both sides, we get that. And if you remember from a couple days ago, this factors into x and x, 15 and 15, plus or minus, which gives me negative 15 and positive 15, which is where I get that to begin with. If you write this as 15 and negative 15, that's right, okay, but you can literally just write it as plus or minus 15. Same kind of thing here. I cannot square root both sides. What I need to always do is, maybe we should write here, always get x squared alone first. Okay, we always want to get x squared alone first. So here, I got to divide both sides by 4. Just treat it like it was an x. If it was 4x equals 9, you would know to divide 4. It's the same thing here. Those cancel. C squared equals 9 over 4. And we just square root both sides. Well, this becomes c plus or minus, again, because I took a square root. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 4 is 2. That's it. Okay. Moving along, if I look at number 3, and I add 9 to both sides, those cancel. X squared equals negative 7. And of course I would square root both sides, but I implore you to try and plug square root of negative 7 in your calculator. What will happen, it will say error, it will say syntax error, it will say no domain, it will say undefined. It depends on the calculator you have, or if you use an online version. What happens here is we can't take the square root of a negative. Why? Because if I plug the square root of a negative back in, well, there's no two numbers that when you multiply them by themselves are going to be negative. Think about it. A positive times a positive is positive. A negative times a negative is positive. I can never get a negative if I square a number. So this is, well, anytime, and hint hint, this is going to show up on your quiz, we get x squared equals a negative number, the solution is no solution. And you can write NS, or you can write no solution, or you can write just this symbol. And that is true all the way across if we get x squared equals a negative number. So what I want you to do here, I think you can start doing these. Trying to think if there's maybe something else I should do. Let me just try number 5 here. So the first step I would do here is add 4 to both sides. Those cancel. 64p squared equals 4. Okay. And then divide by 64. Well, now I've got p squared equals 4 over 64. And we could reduce this. 4 goes into there once, 4 goes into there 16 times. I get p squared equals 1/16. And again, square both sides. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 16 is 4. I get plus or minus 1/4. that should help you be able to do this one. This is pretty much like that one. This one is like that one. Let's look at number 7 though. First things first, well, I don't have a C. If you remember from yesterday, no C means GCF. There's no C term here. I can't factor it. I can't, if I pull it to the other side, then what am I going to do? What I can do though is factor an X out of both of them. Divide an X out. GCF it. X comes out of there X times. X comes out of there 144 times. And I could set that equal to 0. There's not really a way I can square root this problem because of that X. So set each term equal to 0. Guess what? That one's already done. That one I just got to add 144. X equals 144. Done with that. You can see what's going on here. Not very difficult stuff. What I want you to do is try 4, 6, 8, 9, 10 on your own, and then come back, so press pause right now, and then come back and check your answers. This is one that students get caught on. They get w squared equals 24 over 6, and then they try to square root both sides, but it's like, what do we do with that? I don't know the square root of 24. I don't know the square root of 6. But if we reduce that, and 24 divided by 6 is 4, well then I can square root that. Oops. W equals plus or minus 2. Right here, it went right into square rooting x equals plus or minus 12. Make sure you're putting your plus or minus sign. Okay, on this problem, solve either using factoring, GCF, or square roots. Right now, this becomes x plus 6, x minus 6. So you need to start recognizing that as it's called difference of squares. Or I could have also just added 36 to both sides and add x squared equals 36 and square root it to get x equals plus or minus 6. Well, if I set that equal to 0 and if I set that equal to 0, I'd get negative 6 and positive 6, which is the same exact thing. Anyways, next problem. Remember, this is a problem that we can't really use square roots or even a GCF on. Again, factors of this, 1 and 42. I don't know if I would expect you to know this, but 3 and 14, 6 and 7. What's going to give me 17? Oh, it's the one I didn't expect you to know. You might have to take a calculator and divide it by 2. I didn't even give 2 and 21. Divided by 2, divided by 3, divided by 4, and so on to try and see those. Okay? But your multiplication chart does go up to 15, so 42 should show up under 3 and 14. So 3, 14, plus to give me a positive 17 there. Right? 3x and 14x, they both have to be positive. Now again, set each of those terms equal to 0. Minus 3, minus 14. And you get x to be negative 3 and negative 14. And those are my solutions. Okay? That's it for the notes. Your homework is the next 2 pages. Have a good day.